The evening air in Austin was thick with the scent of blooming jasmine, mingling with the distant sounds of laughter from nearby families enjoying the annual Festival of the Arts. I stood in my kitchen, stirring a pot of chile, the familiar aroma grounding me amidst the swirling thoughts crowding my mind. Ethan, my stepson, had returned home after years away at college, and I couldn't shake the feeling that everything had shifted. I had watched him grow from a boy into a man through photos and video calls. Yet seeing him in person was different. The boyish charm that once defined him had transformed into a confident presence. His broad shoulders filled out his shirt nicely, and his deep laugh echoed through our home like a melody I hadn't heard in ages. It was unsettling how quickly nostalgia morphed into something more complex. Dinner was chaotic but comforting. My husband, Mark, animatedly discussed his day at work while our daughter, Lily, shared stories from school. I sat at the table, caught between my family's laughter and an unexpected awareness of Ethan sitting across from me. He caught my eye several times during dinner, each glance sent an electric pulse through me that left me breathless. I forced myself to focus on Mark's words, but they faded into background noise as my thoughts wandered. After dinner, we moved to the living room where laughter continued to flow like wine. The festival lights outside twinkled through our window, casting a warm glow across our faces. Ethan joined us on the couch, his presence magnetic in a way that made it difficult to breathe normally. As he recounted stories from college life, his adventures and misadventures, I found myself hanging on his every word. "Did you ever try that taco truck on 6th Street?" he asked Lily with a grin. "Of course. It's amazing," she replied enthusiastically. Mark interjected with tales of his own college days, stories I'd heard countless times before, but tonight they felt muted against Ethan's vibrant energy. My heart raced as I watched him interact with Lily. There was something undeniably captivating about him now. The evening wore on until Lily excused herself to get ready for bed. Mark followed her upstairs to tuck her in, leaving me alone with Ethan for just a moment longer than expected. In that brief silence, the air thickened between us as we exchanged uncertain glances. A tension hung in the room that I couldn't ignore. "It's good to have you back," I said softly as if breaking some unspoken rule. He smiled, a genuine smile that lit up his face, and nodded. "It feels good to be home." I wanted to say more but held back, words felt inadequate in that moment. Instead, I turned away to grab my drink from the kitchen counter, attempting to quell the fluttering sensation in my stomach. As I poured another glass of wine, memories flooded my mind. Afternoons spent watching him play soccer as a child and family outings filled with joy and laughter before everything changed when he went away for school. But now those memories twisted into something else entirely, a longing that unsettled me deeply. Just then, Mark returned downstairs with Lily trailing behind him, sleepily rubbing her eyes. The moment shattered like glass underfoot as we resumed our previous banter about mundane topics, school schedules and upcoming family events, but beneath it all lay an undercurrent of tension between Ethan and me that felt impossible to ignore. Later that night, after everyone had gone to bed, I found myself restless in our darkened living room. The festival lights outside flickered like stars against the night sky while shadows danced along the walls of our home, a place filled with cherished memories now tainted by unfamiliar feelings. My phone buzzed unexpectedly on the coffee table. A message from Ethan's number appeared on my screen. "Can we talk tomorrow?" Just us. My heart raced at those simple words. They ignited a spark within me that both thrilled and terrified me simultaneously. "Jessica?" Mark called from upstairs. I quickly pocketed my phone before he could see it as guilt washed over me like cold water. "Just getting some water," I shouted back while attempting to steady my breathing. The restlessness lingered long after Mark fell asleep beside me. Sleep evaded me as thoughts spiraled around what this newfound connection meant for us, my marriage and family hanging delicately in balance as if teetering on a tightrope stretched high above uncertainty. In those quiet hours before dawn broke over Austin's horizon, the city slowly waking up, I wrestled with emotions threatening to consume me whole. Attraction mixed with guilt and confusion wrapped tightly around my heart like chains binding me to choices made long ago. As sunlight streamed through our bedroom window later that morning, illuminating every corner of our home, our sanctuary, I felt an overwhelming sense of dread settle within me. Today would be different somehow. And yet nothing could prepare me for what lay ahead when faced with Ethan again amidst whispers of temptation lingering just beneath surface-level conversations about family dinners or weekend plans. I braced myself for what tomorrow might bring, the weight of secrets pressing down heavily upon my chest, knowing full well how easily everything could unravel if one wrong word slipped out or one fleeting glance lingered too long across forbidden lines drawn within familial bonds meant never to be crossed at all. The day unfolded like any other, but the air felt charged with unspoken words and hidden glances. I moved through the house with an urgency that belied my calm exterior. Ethan's presence lingered in every room, a reminder of the shift that had occurred since his return. I busied myself with chores, attempting to drown out the thoughts swirling in my mind. My husband, Mark, had left for work early, leaving me alone with my tangled emotions. As the hours passed, I found myself drawn to the backyard, where Ethan often spent his time sketching or writing in his notebook. The vibrant colors of spring surrounded me, but all I could see was him, his confident posture as he leaned against the old oak tree, lost in thought. I hesitated at the door, battling the urge to join him. Each step felt like a betrayal of my marriage. "Hey," he greeted me without looking up, his voice casual yet inviting. "Hi," I replied softly, stepping outside into the warm sunlight. "What are you working on?" He finally met my gaze and smiled, a smile that sent shivers down my spine. "Just some sketches for a project." He gestured to a few scattered papers on the ground. "Want to take a look?" I approached cautiously and knelt beside him, pretending to examine his work while feeling acutely aware of our proximity. His sketches were impressive, bold lines and vivid colors capturing moments that felt alive. Yet as I studied them, it was difficult to focus on anything but Ethan himself. "Your talent has really grown," I said, forcing myself to sound enthusiastic rather than distracted. "Thanks," he replied, leaning slightly closer as he pointed out details in his art. "It's been a while since I've had time to really dive into it." The conversation flowed easily between us. Laughter punctuated our words as we shared stories about family and life over the past few years. But beneath that laughter lay an undercurrent of tension, a current that pulled us together despite everything we knew about boundaries. Then came a moment when our eyes locked for just a second too long. Something shifted in the air between us, a magnetic force drawing me closer to him. My heart raced as he moved slightly nearer, breaking down invisible walls built over years of familial respect. "Jessica," he said softly, almost hesitantly. I held my breath as he reached out and brushed a loose strand of hair behind my ear, an innocent gesture that ignited something deep within me. The world around us faded away. It was just the two of us in that moment, two souls tangled in an unexpected connection. Before I could think better of it or pull away from this dangerous precipice we were teetering on, Ethan leaned forward and pressed his lips against mine gently yet insistently. We kissed, a moment suspended in time that felt both exhilarating and terrifying all at once. As soon as our lips touched, everything else fell away, the guilt, the fear, all replaced by an overwhelming rush of emotion that left me breathless. It was wrong, I knew it was wrong. But there was no denying how right it felt at that moment. When we finally pulled apart, reality crashed back down around us like cold water splashing against heated skin. My heart raced with confusion and guilt. How could this have happened? What did we just do? I whispered shakily. Ethan's expression mirrored my turmoil, his eyes wide with surprise yet filled with something deeper, desire? Longing? I don't know, he admitted quietly. I quickly stood up and backed away from him as if distancing myself would somehow erase what had just transpired between us. This can't happen again. My voice trembled despite my best efforts to sound firm. I understand, he replied slowly but didn't move away from where he sat on the grass, still looking up at me with those intense eyes that held secrets I wasn't ready to uncover. After what felt like an eternity filled with silence heavy enough to crush me under its weight, I turned away from him and headed back inside our home, the sanctuary now feeling more like a prison built on shaky foundations. The rest of the day dragged on painfully slow as guilt gnawed at me relentlessly. Every corner of our house echoed with reminders of what had nearly happened outside just hours before. When Mark returned home later that evening with takeout food for dinner, his usual cheerful demeanor intact, I couldn't shake off the feeling that everything had changed irrevocably beneath our roof despite appearances being maintained for now. We ate dinner together while exchanging pleasantries about work and plans for upcoming weekends without any hint of tension lingering between us. Or so I thought until Mark's phone buzzed loudly across the table during dessert, breaking through our mundane chatter completely unannounced. He glanced at it quickly before frowning slightly. Curiosity piqued within me as he picked up his phone only to become increasingly still as whatever message flashed across his screen captured all his attention fully, not even bothering to hide what seemed like shock mixed with disbelief etched across his features. "What is it?" I asked cautiously, but already sensing something was amiss deep down inside me, a sense of dread creeping back into my chest, once more threatening everything familiar around us again. Mark looked up abruptly, meeting my gaze before shifting uneasily in his seat, his expression unreadable, now clouded by uncertainty or perhaps suspicion. "It's nothing. Just some news." He sounded distracted. There was no warmth left in his tone anymore, which made alarm bells ring louder within my mind than ever before, urging caution where none existed moments ago when everything felt so innocent still. As dinner concluded awkwardly after what should have been an ordinary evening together spent enjoying each other's company instead turned into quiet avoidance filled only by unanswered questions swirling endlessly around us both, leaving behind echoes reverberating throughout our home long after Mark retreated into silence, unable, or unwilling, to share whatever burden weighed heavily upon him now, instead choosing solitude over connection, leaving me alone once again grappling internally with choices made too hastily earlier today. The thrill lingered still, though tainted by fear, the kiss replaying vividly within memory alongside mounting uncertainty looming ominously ahead. What would tomorrow bring? The next morning, the sun rose with a brightness that felt almost mocking in its cheer. I moved through the house like a ghost, trying to find my footing in a world that had shifted overnight. Mark had already left for work, leaving behind the remnants of our last conversation hanging in the air like a thick fog. I made coffee, but the familiar smell did little to soothe my racing thoughts. Ethan was due to arrive later that afternoon. I replayed the events of yesterday in my mind. The kiss lingered between us like an uninvited guest, and I couldn't shake off the thrill mixed with dread. Would he want to talk about it? Would he push for more? My heart raced at the thought of facing him again. I spent the morning cleaning and organizing, trying to distract myself from the inevitable confrontation. The sound of my vacuum cleaner filled the silence, but even that couldn't drown out the inner turmoil. I paused to glance out the window, watching families stroll by with their laughter echoing in my ears, a stark contrast to my own spiraling emotions. When Ethan finally arrived, his presence filled the room with an energy I hadn't anticipated. He walked in casually, as if nothing had happened between us. But there was a spark in his eyes that told me he was just as aware of our shared secret as I was. "Hey," he said simply, leaning against the kitchen counter. "Hi," I replied, forcing a smile while feeling my stomach twist into knots. We exchanged small talk about mundane things, his job search and plans for the weekend, each word feeling like an act in a play where we both knew our roles but were terrified of what might happen next. Then came a moment when our gazes locked across the table, and time seemed to freeze. The air thickened with unspoken words and emotions too complex to articulate. It felt as if we were both teetering on an edge, waiting for one of us to make a move. "Can we talk?" Ethan finally broke the silence. I nodded slowly, heart pounding as we moved into the living room where we could speak without interruption. The walls felt like they were closing in as he settled onto the couch across from me. "I've been thinking about yesterday," he started cautiously. "About what happened?" My breath hitched slightly at his words. "Me too." He leaned forward slightly, his expression earnest yet guarded. "I don't want this to be just a fleeting moment for us." The weight of his statement hung heavy between us. A part of me wanted to reach out and close that distance, another part screamed at me to retreat, to remember everything at stake. "I don't know how this works," I admitted quietly, searching his face for understanding. Ethan's gaze softened as he took another step closer physically and emotionally. "Neither do I," he confessed. "But I can't pretend it didn't happen." Before I could respond, he reached out and took my hand gently in his, a simple gesture that sent shockwaves through me. Our fingers intertwined instinctively, warmth spread through me like wildfire, igniting something deep within. Our lips met then, an impulsive decision driven by raw emotion rather than logic or reason, and everything else faded away into oblivion for those brief moments when nothing else mattered but us. But reality crashed back down all too quickly when we heard Mark's car pull into the driveway just moments later. Panic surged through me as I pulled away from Ethan's grasp abruptly, heart racing at what we had just done. "What do we do?" My voice trembled slightly as fear gripped me tight. "We need to act normal," Ethan urged softly, though uncertainty flickered in his eyes too. I nodded mechanically as adrenaline coursed through my veins while we hurriedly rearranged ourselves back into semblances of normalcy before Mark walked through that door. Before our secret could unravel completely, before it even had time to breathe life into itself fully yet. Mark entered moments later with a casual smile plastered on his face despite clearly sensing something was off between us, an instinct honed over years of marriage perhaps, but thankfully not pressing further for now as he greeted Ethan warmly before slipping into conversation about mundane matters concerning work and upcoming family obligations looming ahead on our calendar like ominous clouds ready to burst forth rain upon us all at any given moment without warning. Yet even amidst this facade of domesticity being played out before us both, the tension simmered beneath each word spoken. A silent acknowledgement lingering uncomfortably between Ethan and me throughout dinner, where laughter echoed hollowly around us, instead filling spaces left vacant by truths left unsaid, still hanging heavily above our heads, waiting patiently until they could no longer be denied. After dinner concluded uneasily, once again filled only by silence echoing throughout rooms long after Mark retreated upstairs, leaving both Ethan and me alone once more, grappling internally with choices made far too hastily earlier today. The thrill lingered still, though tainted by fear, the kiss replaying vividly within memory alongside mounting uncertainty looming ominously ahead. What would tomorrow bring? As night fell over Austin, wrapped around us, gently cradling secrets shared under its cloak, darkness offered respite from prying eyes outside, but also served reminder stakes were higher than either one of us had anticipated entering this tangled web woven carefully together, now threatening unravel at slightest tug against threads binding hearts together tightly yet precariously balanced upon edge. Precarious cliff where one misstep could lead tumbling down into abyss below. I stood near window gazing outside, watching stars twinkle bright against velvet sky, wishing desperately things could be different, wishing perhaps there existed alternate universe somewhere far removed from here where love flourished freely without consequence or guilt weighing heavy hearts down, dragging them deeper beneath surface waters, threatening drown beneath waves crashing relentlessly upon shores, dreams once held dear now slipping further away each passing moment. The soft glow of the moonlight filtered through the window, casting shadows across my living room as I sat on the couch, lost in thought. The silence of the house felt oppressive, heavy with unspoken words and unresolved emotions. Ethan had left only hours ago, and already his absence echoed loudly in my mind. We spent the night together, and as I replayed every moment, a mixture of exhilaration and dread washed over me. I glanced at my phone, half expecting a message from him. It was foolish to think he would reach out so soon. We were navigating a treacherous path, one that could easily lead to ruin. The weight of my choices pressed down on me as I considered the life I had built with my husband, Mark. He deserved better than this tangled mess I had created. The sound of Mark's car pulling into the driveway jolted me back to reality. Panic surged through me as I hurried to compose myself, wiping away the remnants of my earlier thoughts. I needed to act normal, to maintain the facade that everything was fine. As he walked through the door, his tired expression softened when he saw me. "Hey," he said, dropping his keys onto the table. "How was your day?" "Just busy with work," I replied too quickly, forcing a smile that felt foreign on my lips. Mark nodded but didn't press further. He could sense something was off, he always could. As we settled into our evening routine, dinner and then watching TV, I couldn't shake the feeling that each passing moment brought us closer to a breaking point. Later that night, after Mark had fallen asleep beside me, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. My mind drifted back to Ethan's smile, the way it lit up his face when he laughed, and how it felt when our lips met in that quiet corner of the house. The thrill of that kiss had ignited something within me that I thought had long been extinguished by years of routine and responsibility. But guilt clawed at me relentlessly. How could I betray Mark like this? He worked so hard for our family, he deserved loyalty and trust, not this secret life filled with passion but void of honesty. Yet there was a part of me that craved more from life than what our marriage offered, a yearning for connection that seemed impossible within the confines of my current reality. The next few days blurred together in a haze of tension and anxiety. Family gatherings became increasingly strained as I struggled to keep up appearances while battling inner turmoil. Each time Ethan entered a room or spoke to me, every shared glance felt electric, a reminder of what we had crossed into together. At one point during dinner with friends, laughter erupted around us while I sat silently picking at my food, feeling like an imposter in my own life. My friend Rachel leaned over and whispered, "You okay? You seem distant." "I'm fine," I replied too quickly again. She raised an eyebrow but didn't push further. Instead, she turned her attention back to the conversation around us. But her concern lingered in my mind like an unwelcome shadow. As days passed without contact from Ethan, no texts or calls, I found myself growing restless and uneasy about where we stood. Did he regret what happened? Was he trying to distance himself? The uncertainty gnawed at me until finally one evening after dinner with Mark, unable to hold back any longer, I texted him, "Can we talk?" The response came quickly, "Yes." We arranged to meet at a local bar on 6th Street, a place filled with laughter and music where no one would suspect anything out of the ordinary between us. As I walked through those familiar doors later that week, excitement mixed with fear coursed through me like a double-edged sword. When our eyes met across the crowded room, something shifted within me again, the gravity of our connection undeniable even amidst chaos surrounding us both. We found a quiet corner booth away from prying eyes where we could speak freely without fear of judgment or interruption. "Ethan," I began hesitantly as we settled into our seats across from one another. "I've been thinking about everything." He leaned forward slightly, his expression earnest yet guarded, waiting for me to continue. "I don't know what this is anymore," I admitted finally after moments stretched like hours between us filled only by ambient noise surrounding us both. The clinking glasses and muffled conversations blending into background static drowning out clarity amidst confusion swirling around inside my mind. "I want you," he said simply but powerfully, his gaze unwavering as it locked onto mine, sending shivers down my spine despite layers upon layers built around vulnerability kept hidden beneath surface for so long now threatening break free entirely if given even slightest chance. "But what about?" My voice faltered as guilt resurfaced like an unwelcome guest crashing into our fragile moment together, the truth looming heavily above us both, threatening unravel everything should either one dare acknowledge it out loud. Ethan reached across the table, taking hold of my hand firmly yet gently, his touch igniting warmth spreading through veins coursing wildly beneath skin, reminding just how real this all felt despite consequences looming overhead, waiting patiently ready strike should we fail, recognize dangers hiding behind every corner, lurking just beyond reach. We can figure this out, he urged softly, squeezing fingers wrapped tightly around mine, offering hope amidst uncertainty swirling around us both, leaving little room breathe without feeling suffocated beneath weight pressing down upon shoulders burdened by decisions made a long way leading here, now standing poised upon precipice ready leap into unknown depths below. But deep down inside something whispered caution, reminding me just how fragile everything truly was, balancing precariously between two worlds neither fully mine nor his alone, belonging entirely separate lives intertwined, now caught up, whirlwind emotions spiraling faster than reason could catch up, dragging along unsuspecting hearts entangled within chaos unfolding before eyes wide open, unable look away. As night wore on, darkness enveloping bar surrounding us, fading slowly into backdrop, memories created within those walls filled, laughter echoing long after last call sent, patrons spilling out onto streets beyond, leaving behind traces lingering, sweet taste, bittersweet longing etched forever upon souls intertwined, forever changed by choices made during fleeting moments spent together, lost time never truly returning again. I knew then whatever path lay ahead wouldn't be easy, nor would it promise happiness without sacrifice, but perhaps worth taking, chance stepping beyond boundaries drawn previously, keeping separate lives apart, allowing hearts beat freely once more unencumbered by expectations set forth long ago. The vibrant chaos of the Festival of the Arts faded into a muted memory as I returned home. The lively sounds of music and laughter still echoed in my ears, but they felt distant now, overshadowed by the weight of my choices. I stepped into the house, greeted by the familiar yet suffocating silence that had become my constant companion. My husband was in the living room, engrossed in a book, oblivious to the turmoil swirling inside me. As I settled onto the couch across from him, I couldn't shake off the feeling that everything was shifting beneath my feet. The tension between us had thickened over the past weeks, and I could sense his growing suspicion. He glanced up briefly, offering a distracted smile before returning to his pages. It should have comforted me, but instead, it felt like another layer of distance had formed. Days passed with an unsettling rhythm. Family gatherings morphed into strained affairs where smiles were forced and laughter hollow. My stepson Ethan's presence loomed large during these moments, a constant reminder of what lay beneath the surface. Every shared glance between us ignited an internal struggle that left me breathless. I tried to maintain normalcy, but it was becoming increasingly difficult. One evening at dinner, my friend Clara visited. She had always been perceptive and could read emotions like an open book. As we sat around the table discussing mundane topics, I noticed her eyes flicker between me and Ethan more than once. A knot tightened in my stomach. I could feel her probing gaze searching for something unspoken. "Everything okay?" she asked casually after my husband excused himself to answer a phone call. "Of course," I replied too quickly, forcing a smile that felt more like a grimace. Clara raised an eyebrow but said nothing further. The moment hung heavy in the air until my husband returned, blissfully unaware of the tension brewing just beneath our polite exchanges. Later that night, as I lay in bed beside him with thoughts racing through my mind, sleep eluded me. Memories of Ethan flooded back, his laughter during family outings and those lingering moments filled with unspoken words. How had we arrived here? How had this attraction blossomed so unexpectedly? I tossed and turned until finally succumbing to exhaustion. Just as sleep began to claim me, my phone buzzed on the nightstand, a message from Ethan flashing on the screen. "Can we talk?" My heart raced at his words. Part of me wanted to ignore it while another part craved his presence desperately. The next day dragged painfully slow until finally evening arrived. Once again alone in our family home while my husband worked late hours at his office, I found myself pacing anxiously around the living room. Finally giving in to temptation, I texted back, yes. Ethan arrived shortly after sunset. He looked different somehow, more confident yet vulnerable at once. His eyes sparkled with an intensity that sent shivers down my spine as he stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. "What did you want to talk about?" I asked softly as we settled onto opposite ends of the couch. He hesitated for a moment before speaking. "I can't stop thinking about you." The air thickened around us as those words hung between us like a fragile thread waiting to snap under pressure. My heart raced. This was what I feared most, the acknowledgement of our feelings out loud. "I shouldn't," I started but faltered when he leaned closer. "Why not? We both know there's something here." His voice was low and steady as he reached for my hand resting on my lap. A rush of warmth spread through me at his touch despite every logical thought screaming for restraint. "Ethan." Before I could finish my sentence or pull away from him entirely, he closed the distance further until our lips met, a spark igniting within me once more despite knowing how wrong it was. In that momentary lapse of reason where desire eclipsed all rationality around us, the world outside faded completely away, leaving just us suspended in time together, entwined by unspoken longing, until reality crashed back down upon us like cold water splashing against heated skin. I pulled back abruptly. Panic coursed through me as regret set in immediately after that brief connection shared between us lingered heavily in silence, filling every corner of our minds with uncertainty about what came next. "I can't," I whispered breathlessly while pulling away completely, now feeling exposed under scrutiny from both myself and him alike. This wasn't who I was supposed to be nor who he needed either. But even as those thoughts raced through my mind louder than any heartbeat echoing within this space shared together, I couldn't deny how intoxicating it felt being close enough again where boundaries blurred into shadows cast by choices made long ago. We spent hours talking about everything except what truly mattered, the feelings simmering just below surface threatening eruption if left unchecked any longer than necessary. It became clear neither one wanted this conversation ending without resolution found somewhere amongst tangled emotions binding us together tighter than ever before. Just then came another interruption, my phone buzzing again, demanding attention, pulling focus away from what mattered most. Glancing down at screen revealed unexpected name lighting up display. Mark, my husband, calling unexpectedly so late. I hesitated briefly before answering, knowing full well consequences awaited should things unfold incorrectly, now caught between two worlds colliding dangerously close together, threatening collapse beneath weight carried too long already. "Hey," Mark's voice broke through static silence, filling void left behind moments earlier, filled only by breaths shared between Ethan and myself moments prior, leaving no room left for error remaining. "Hi," trying keeping tone light despite tension rising rapidly, feeling heat radiate off Ethan's body beside mine, still lingering far too close even though conversation shifted elsewhere entirely, now forcing distance created earlier fading quickly into memory lost, forever replaced instead by uncertainty looming ahead, threatening everything once thought stable, crumbling slowly apart piece by piece. As Mark spoke about mundane details regarding workday ahead tomorrow morning, my mind drifted back towards Ethan's presence nearby, reminding just how precarious position found ourselves entangled within each other's lives, risking everything without truly understanding implications lurking beneath surface, unseen yet palpable nonetheless. After finishing call abruptly ending conversation, leaving behind echoes lingering still within walls surrounding us, eyes met again, searching depths, seeking answers, neither willing provide fully yet craving connection deeper than ever before. In those fleeting seconds stretched out endlessly, hovering above ground where love battled guilt head-on, it dawned upon realization escaping impossible, now unable hide forever anymore. As silence enveloped room once more, thickening atmosphere surrounding us, I knew whatever came next would change everything, irrevocably altering paths chosen, leading forward into unknown territory filled with consequences awaited inevitably just around corner, waiting patiently ready strike when least expected, catching unaware. anyone daring tread waters deemed forbidden. The weight of the moment hung heavily in the air, each breath a reminder of the precarious balance I was attempting to maintain. Ethan's eyes searched mine, filled with an intensity that both thrilled and terrified me. It was a silent plea, one that begged for understanding, for connection, for something more than what I was willing to give. "Jessica," he said softly, breaking the tension that had enveloped us. "What are we doing? You can't keep pushing me away." His words struck deep, resonating within me like a bell tolling in the quiet of night. I had been trying so hard to establish boundaries, to protect my family, my marriage, but every time I looked at him, those walls crumbled just a little more. "I'm not pushing you away," I replied, though my voice lacked conviction. "I just need time to think." He stepped closer, the warmth radiating from his body almost palpable. "Time to think about what? About us? Because it feels like you're afraid of what this could be." The truth in his statement felt like a knife twisting in my gut. He was right. I was terrified, not just of our connection but of how it would shatter everything I held dear if it were discovered. My husband had been nothing but supportive during Ethan's return home. He deserved better than this secret life I was leading. "Ethan, please," I urged as I took a step back, creating distance between us again. "You have to understand, this is complicated." "Complicated," he echoed incredulously. "Or is it just easier for you to pretend that nothing is happening?" His frustration ignited something within me, a mixture of anger and fear that threatened to spill over. "You don't know what you're asking me to do. This isn't just about us, there are consequences." He crossed his arms, frustration morphing into hurt. "So you're willing to let this go? To throw away what we have because it's too hard?" I opened my mouth to respond but was interrupted by the shrill sound of my phone vibrating on the table behind me. The sudden noise jolted both of us from our charged moment, and I glanced at the screen. My husband's name lit up in bold letters. Panic surged through me as I reached for it instinctively but hesitated before answering. The last thing I needed was for him to sense something off during one of our increasingly rare conversations. "Jessica?" Ethan's voice pulled me back into reality. "I need to take this," I said quickly, stepping away from him and answering with a shaky breath. "Hey," my husband greeted on the other end, his tone light yet tinged with an undercurrent of concern that set my nerves on edge. "Hi," I managed to reply, forcing cheerfulness into my voice. "You okay?" he asked casually enough but with an edge that suggested he sensed something amiss. "Yeah, just busy with work stuff," I lied smoothly. "Busy or distracted?" There it was, the subtle accusation that sent heat rushing to my cheeks. "I'm fine." The words felt empty even as they left my lips. "Listen," he continued gently but firmly. "I've noticed you've been distant lately." My heart sank at his admission, guilt washed over me like a wave crashing against the shore. How could I explain this mess without unraveling everything? "I've just got a lot on my mind," I replied carefully. "Is it about Ethan?" His question hung heavy in the air between us. I froze at his mention of Ethan's name, my heart raced as dread pooled in my stomach. Had he seen something? Did he suspect more than he let on? "No. It's not about him," I insisted too quickly. There was silence on the other end before he spoke again, his voice softer now but still probing. "You know you can talk to me about anything." "I know." My voice trembled slightly as uncertainty crept in again, a reminder of how fragile everything truly was. As we exchanged small talk meant to mask deeper issues lurking beneath the surface, Ethan watched silently from across the room, his expression unreadable yet intense enough to make my pulse race again. When our conversation finally ended and I hung up feeling shaky and vulnerable, Ethan stepped closer once more, his presence both comforting and alarming all at once. "What did he say?" His inquiry cut through the silence like a knife. "He's worried about me," The admission felt heavy on my tongue, as if admitting weakness would somehow make everything worse. Ethan frowned slightly, as if digesting this new information before speaking again. "And what about you? Are you worried about him?" My heart raced at his question. Guilt clawed at me fiercely now, an undeniable truth rising from its depths like bile threatening escape. "I don't want this." My words came out sharper than intended, a mix of frustration and desperation spilling forth uncontrollably now that we were standing so close again amidst all this turmoil surrounding us both. "But you want me." He stepped even closer until there were mere inches between us, the tension crackling like electricity in the air surrounding us again, each heartbeat echoing louder than before as desire battled reason yet again within this uncharted territory we found ourselves traversing together now. Before another word could pass between us though, a sudden vibration interrupted once more, this time louder and insistent against our charged atmosphere, another message pinging through from somewhere deep within my pocket, the weighty dread returning instantly as realization struck. What if it wasn't just innocent banter anymore? My husband had texted asking if everything really was all right after all, and suddenly every choice made thus far loomed large upon reflection, the stakes higher than ever before. As panic surged anew through veins already strained by too many secrets, I glanced toward Ethan, whose expression mirrored mine, caught between longing and uncertainty, as reality settled heavily around us both. Trust fraying dangerously thin while decisions made lingered ominously ahead, waiting patiently ready strike when least expected, catching unaware anyone daring tread waters deemed forbidden. The air was thick with tension as the family gathered at Zilker Park for the Festival of the Arts. Colorful banners fluttered in the breeze, and laughter echoed around us, but I felt like an outsider in my own life. My husband, Mark, was animatedly discussing a local artist with our friends, while I stood off to the side, my heart racing as I caught glimpses of Ethan moving through the crowd. He seemed at ease, his presence magnetic and unsettling all at once. I tried to immerse myself in the festivities, but every sound felt muted. The vibrant colors blurred together as I wrestled with the knowledge of what lay beneath the surface of my seemingly perfect life. Mark's laughter rang out like a bell, but it only served to amplify my internal conflict. How could I continue to play this role when every moment spent with Ethan felt like a secret yearning that threatened to spill over? As I sipped my drink, I caught Ethan's eye across the park. A flicker of understanding passed between us, an unspoken acknowledgement of everything that had transpired since his return. He approached me slowly, weaving through the throngs of people, and my pulse quickened at his proximity. "Hey," he said softly, glancing around to ensure no one was listening. "You okay?" I forced a smile, though it felt hollow. "Just enjoying the festival." Ethan studied me for a moment before nodding slightly. "You don't look like you are." His concern pierced through my facade. Each word he spoke seemed to tug at the hidden threads binding our lives together in this web of secrecy. "It's just a lot going on," I admitted quietly. "Want to get some air," he suggested, tilting his head toward a quieter corner of the park. Before I could respond, Mark called out from across the lawn. "Jess, come see this." His voice was cheerful and oblivious to the storm brewing within me. I hesitated for a heartbeat before forcing myself to turn back toward him. "Coming." The warmth in Mark's tone contrasted sharply with my inner turmoil as I walked away from Ethan. As we mingled among friends and admired local art pieces, Mark leaned closer to me and whispered something funny about one of the sculptures. I laughed genuinely this time. It felt good to be reminded of why we had built our life together. Yet even as I smiled at him, Ethan lingered in my thoughts, his presence an electric current running just beneath my skin. Later that evening, after returning home from the festival, Mark seemed restless as he flipped through channels on TV while I washed dishes in silence. The mundane task offered little distraction from the chaos within me. "Jess," he said suddenly, breaking into my thoughts. "Can we talk?" My heart sank, There was an edge in his voice that hinted at something deeper than just casual conversation. "Sure," I replied cautiously. We settled into our living room chairs, his expression serious as he leaned forward slightly. "I've noticed you've been distant lately." The words hung heavy between us like a weight threatening to pull everything down into darkness. "I'm just tired," I offered weakly. He frowned slightly but pressed on. "It feels more than that. Is there something you want to share?" The question struck me hard, guilt twisted in my stomach as images of Ethan flashed through my mind, the stolen moments filled with emotion and confusion overshadowing everything else in my life. "I promise you can tell me anything," Mark continued gently. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed on the table beside me, a message notification from Ethan lighting up the screen. "Can we talk?" Panic surged through me as Mark glanced down at it without hesitation. His brow furrowed deeper as he read what appeared on display for all too long before handing it back without saying a word, his silence louder than any accusation could have been. "I didn't mean," my voice trailed off into uncertainty, shame flooded over me like ice water. Mark stood abruptly, anger simmered just beneath his calm demeanor, the tension palpable as he paced across our small living room before turning back toward me with an expression torn between hurt and confusion. "What is going on between you two?" His voice rose slightly, a mixture of disbelief and pain etched into each syllable. "I swear it's not what you think." My desperation spilled out unfiltered, every instinct screamed for him to understand that this wasn't about betrayal but rather an emotional entanglement spiraling out of control. "What am I supposed to think?" He shot back defensively, his eyes narrowing in disbelief, searching for answers where none existed within reach anymore. "I don't know." The words escaped before I could hold them back. Frustration bubbled over into raw honesty, the truth spilling forth unbidden amidst everything else swirling around us both now threatening collapse without mercy or warning. Mark ran a hand through his hair, the gesture familiar yet foreign all at once, as if grappling with something far larger than either one of us could comprehend right now. Trust shattered by secrets long kept hidden beneath layers upon layers built over years spent together trying desperately not lose sight who we once were amidst chaos unfolding around us both. As silence enveloped us again, a heavy shroud draped across fragile hearts laid bare, I couldn't shake feeling trapped between two worlds neither willing let go nor accept reality crashing down upon them both. And then came another twist, footsteps echoed outside our door, a knock reverberating against walls-lined memories now tinged darkly by shadows cast forth from choices made too hastily earlier today. My heart raced anew, not knowing whether relief or dread awaited beyond thresholds separating us from whatever fate loomed ahead waiting ominously ready strike when least expected catching unaware anyone daring tread waters deemed forbidden. "Who is it?" Mark called out sharply, his voice strained tight against rising tension filling every crevice surrounding us both now suffocating hope left lingering behind closed doors forever sealed shut until truth finally emerged victorious reclaiming ground lost somewhere along way leading here tonight. And so we waited, held captive by secrets unraveling before eyes unable bear witness any longer without consequence lurking ever closer ready claim its due. The silence in the room was deafening, stretching uncomfortably between Mark and me. I could feel the weight of his gaze, searching for answers hidden beneath my skin. My heart raced, caught in a tempest of emotions that threatened to spill over. The truth loomed large, casting shadows over the memories we had built together, memories now tainted by my betrayal. "I asked you a question," Mark pressed again, his voice edged with frustration. I could only stare back at him, my mind racing through the tangled web of lies and half-truths I had woven. The thrill of my secret with Ethan felt distant now, overshadowed by the reality of what lay before me. The laughter from the festival outside drifted through the open window, a stark contrast to the turmoil inside. "Who is it?" he demanded once more, his patience fraying. I opened my mouth to respond but found no words. How could I explain something that felt so impossible? The very thought of Ethan brought a rush of conflicting emotions, desire mingled with guilt, longing intertwined with fear. I thought about how he had transformed over the years, from a boy into a man who had captivated me in ways I never anticipated. Is it someone at work? Mark pressed again, his brow furrowing as he tried to piece together my silence. No, I finally managed to say, though it felt like a lie hanging in the air between us. Just then, my phone buzzed on the table beside me, an unexpected message from Ethan. My heart dropped as I glanced at it briefly before silencing it. The timing couldn't have been worse, it felt like fate mocking me for what I had done. Mark's eyes narrowed as he caught sight of my reaction. What was that? It's nothing, I replied too quickly, wishing I could take back my words before they settled like stones between us. He stepped closer, his expression shifting from anger to concern. Jessica, please. The vulnerability in his voice pierced through my defenses. This man had stood by me through everything, how could I betray him so cruelly? Yet here we were, on opposite sides of a chasm created by choices that spiraled beyond our control. I'm sorry, I whispered finally, tears welling up as shame washed over me. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. Mark's face softened slightly but remained guarded. Then tell me what is going on. Before I could respond, another buzz echoed from my phone, a reminder that Ethan was waiting for an answer he might never receive now that everything was unraveling around us. I can't, my voice faltered as desperation seeped into every word. In that moment, Mark reached out and took my hand gently in his own, a gesture filled with both love and uncertainty. You can tell me anything, he urged softly. But how could I share this burden? The weight of our shared past was heavy enough without adding more chaos into our lives. I just need time, I said finally, pulling away from him as if distance would somehow shield us both from the truth. Mark's brow furrowed deeper as he processed my words, frustration mixed with concern clouded his features. He stepped back and crossed his arms defensively across his chest, an instinctive barrier against whatever storm was brewing between us. Time? His voice cracked slightly under pressure. How much time do you need? The question hung in the air like an unwelcome guest at our table, the answer elusive and painful to confront. Just then, another vibration interrupted our tense standoff. This time it was a call from Ethan. Jessica, Mark said sharply as realization dawned on him. Is this about Ethan? I hesitated again but knew there was no escaping this confrontation any longer. The dam had broken wide open and all that remained were fragments of what once was. Yes. The words slipped out almost involuntarily, a confession wrapped in regret and longing all at once. Mark's expression shifted dramatically, hurt flickered across his face before anger took its place like an unwelcome shadow creeping into our lives once more. You're telling me you've been seeing him behind my back? His voice trembled slightly but carried an edge that cut deep into my heart. It's not like that. My protest felt weak even as it left my lips, an attempt to salvage something precious amid the wreckage we were both staring at helplessly now. Then what is it like? His tone dripped with disbelief laced tightly around every syllable uttered between us now heavy with accusation and sorrow intertwined together within one moment suspended in time forever changing everything we knew about each other. Before I could answer him fully or even attempt to explain myself further than mere words allowed right now, the door swung open abruptly revealing Ethan standing there unexpectedly framed against fading daylight behind him casting shadows across our living room floor where secrets danced dangerously close threatening exposure beyond repair. What's going on? He asked cautiously glancing between us both sensing tension thick enough to slice through if only one dared take a step forward breaking free from invisible chains binding all three together. In that instant clarity pierced through chaos surrounding me. I stood at an intersection where choices converged, leading toward paths unknown, filled with consequences looming large, ready to swallow whole whatever remained unspoken, left lingering behind closed doors, waiting patiently for someone brave enough, willing risk everything they held dear just for chance taste forbidden fruit. And there we were, all three caught within this moment where decisions made would echo far beyond tonight, shattering illusions built carefully over years, leaving nothing but shards reflecting broken dreams scattered across an uncertain future, waiting patiently just beyond reach.